Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Monday, June 2nd, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will reach a comfortable high of 78.3 degrees Fahrenheit with a low of 63.5 degrees. Expect clear skies, making it a pleasant day to enjoy the outdoors. On today's program, we'll explore the complex dynamic of why Ukraine and Russia are engaged in talks, even as the conflict between them rages on. Then, we'll uncover a significant story, linking a tragic death to the troubling practice of a health insurance "ghost network." What are these networks, and why do they pose such a risk? All this and more coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. We begin this morning with a story that has the world holding its breath as diplomatic efforts continue amidst escalating conflict in Eastern Europe. Today, June 2nd, 2025, marks the second round of direct peace talks between Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul, Turkey, within just a fortnight. But these discussions are unfolding against a backdrop of intense military activity, casting a long shadow over hopes for a breakthrough. For more on this crucial development, we turn to our reporter, Ethan. Ethan, can you set the scene for us?
Grace, it's a dramatic situation. Delegations from Moscow and Kiev are once again meeting at Istanbul's elegant Saragan Palace, aiming to address the protracted three-year conflict. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan is presiding over these behind-closed-doors discussions, emphasizing that the, quote, whole world is watching, quote. However, Grace, expectations for any major progress are incredibly low, primarily due to the dramatic escalation of military activity by both sides over the preceding weekend. It's been a very kinetic few days.
You mentioned that intense military activity. Can you elaborate on what happened leading up to these talks? What kind of escalation are we talking about?
Absolutely, Grace. On Sunday, June 1st, Ukraine launched what it dubbed, quote, Operation Spider's Web, quote, a truly brilliant and unprecedented long-range drone attack. This was a coordinated drone assault, personally supervised by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and planned by the Security Service of Ukraine, or SBU, over 18 months. According to reporting from ABC News, this involved 117 drones targeting 5 Russian air bases deep within Russian territory.
117 drones. That's a massive undertaking. Which Russian air bases were targeted, and what was the aim?
The targets included Belaya, Diaghilevo, Ivanovo-Severny, Olenia, and Ukrinka. Some of these locations are thousands of kilometers from Ukraine, extending near Moscow, into the Arctic, Siberia, and the Far East. For instance, Belaya Air Base was reportedly 4,300 kilometers away. Ukraine's primary goal was to destroy Russian strategic bombers like the Tu-95, Tu-22M3, and Tu-160 models, as well as a 50 early warning aircraft which Russia uses to bomb Ukrainian cities. Ukraine claims the attack destroyed or damaged over 40 Russian warplanes, including at least 13 jets, inflicting an estimated $7 billion in damages and affecting 34% of Russia's strategic cruise missile carriers. The Institute for the Study of War, or ISW, noted that Russia's capacity to launch long-range missiles and drones might be temporarily constrained, and some older strategic aircraft hit are irreplaceable.
So, Ukraine certainly struck a blow. How did Russia retaliate?
Russia responded with a massive wave of its own attacks, Grace. On Sunday, Russia launched 472 drones at Ukraine, the largest number since the full-scale invasion began in February 2022, clearly an attempt to overwhelm Ukrainian air defenses. Ukraine's Air Force stated it, quote, neutralized, quote, 385 aerial targets. Moscow also pounded Ukraine with missiles. On Monday morning, 2 ballistic missiles struck a residential neighborhood in Kharkiv, Ukraine, hitting near a school and an apartment building, though miraculously causing no casualties. Russian artillery also attacked the southern Ukrainian city of Kherson, killing 1 civilian and injuring a 5-year-old boy. Furthermore, A Russian missile strike on a Ukrainian military training base in the Dnipro region reportedly killed at least 12 soldiers and injured over 60, leading to the resignation of Ukraine's head of land forces, Major General Mikhailo Drapati. Beyond Ukraine, explosions caused 2 bridges to collapse in western Russia bordering Ukraine, derailing 2 trains, killing 7 people, and injuring dozens in one incident, which Russia's investigative committee classified as, quote, terrorist attacks, quote. This really puts the word, quote, peace talks, quote, into stark relief.
Indeed. With such intense fighting, what are the delegations hoping to achieve at these Istanbul talks? What's on the agenda for both sides?
Ukraine arrived ready to take, quote, big steps toward peace, quote, with a, quote, clear agenda, quote. Their key proposals include an immediate and unconditional ceasefire, with President Zelensky desiring a comprehensive ceasefire for at least 30 days on land, air, and sea. Other core demands are a full exchange of all prisoners, including both prisoners of war and political prisoners, the return of Ukrainian children taken to Russian-held areas, reparations from Russia, and using the current front line as the starting point for negotiations about territory. Their proposed memorandum also reportedly includes provisions for international monitoring of a ceasefire, aiming to prepare for a highest-level meeting between President Zelensky and President Putin to establish lasting peace. President Zelensky, speaking from a NATO summit in Lithuania, stated that if these talks yielded no results, new sanctions against Russia would be, quote, urgently needed, quote.
And what about Russia's side? Have they presented their terms?
Russia had not officially submitted its detailed peace terms or a, quote, memorandum, quote, in advance of today's talks. Kremlin aide Vladimir Medinsky confirmed that Moscow had received Ukraine's draft memorandum and would react to it today, June 2nd. However, Russia's UN ambassador had previously stated that Moscow would only consider a ceasefire if Ukraine halted mobilization and ceased receiving foreign military aid. Russian officials have also called for Ukraine to be cut off from Western military support and to cede territory. These are very significant differences, Grace.
Given these vast differences and the recent escalation, what are the current outcomes from today's discussions? Any glimmer of hope?
As of early June 3, 2025, Grace, specific new agreements or concrete breakthroughs from today's negotiating session itself have not been widely reported. The only significant outcome reported from the recent rounds of talks was a large-scale prisoner exchange of 1,000 prisoners each, which was agreed upon during the first round of renewed talks in Istanbul on May 16th. While Ukraine's proposal includes a potential Zelensky-Putin meeting, and Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov stated President Putin was, quote, fundamentally in favor. Quote, no agreement or concrete plans for such a high-level meeting were reported from today's talks. Experts, including those from the Institute for the Study of War, largely view these Istanbul negotiations as a form of strategic signaling or attempts to secure limited gains, like prisoner swaps, rather than a viable path to a comprehensive peace settlement. They believe Moscow may be attempting to portray Ukraine as unwilling to negotiate by stalling on its own terms, or trying to create an illusion of openness while continuing to build up its military capabilities. The deeply entrenched and contradictory war aims of Kyiv and Moscow make a comprehensive peace settlement an unlikely outcome in the near term.
It certainly sounds like a long and rocky road to peace. Ethan, thank you for breaking down these complex developments for us.
My pleasure, Grace.
That was Ethan with the latest on the peace talks. We'll be keeping a close eye on this story, and when we come back, we'll shift our focus to story 2 of 2. Welcome back, everyone. We turn now to a story that truly hits home for many families navigating our complex healthcare system. A landmark lawsuit has just been filed, shining a harsh spotlight on what some are calling a, quote, ghost network, end quote, within a major insurance provider. For more, we go to our reporter, Chloe. Chloe, what can you tell us about this significant and haunting case?
Grace, this is a very serious development. On May 23, 2025, Barbara Weber filed a landmark lawsuit in Maricopa County, Arizona. She is the mother of the late Ravi Coutinho, and she is suing health insurance giant Centene Corporation and its subsidiary HealthNet of Arizona. Her core allegation is that Centene operated a deceptive, quote, ghost network, end quote, of mental health providers, publishing, quote, inaccurate and misleading, end quote, directories. She argues these directly prevented her son from accessing crucial mental health care, tragically preceding his death. This case has garnered significant attention, especially following an in-depth investigation by ProPublica.
A, quote, ghost network, end quote, sounds incredibly frustrating, like a real specter haunting those who need care. What exactly happened to Ravi Coutinho?
Ravi Coutinho, a 36-year-old entrepreneur in Phoenix, purchased a Centene Ambetter plan believing it offered extensive mental health options. In early 2023, struggling to find an in-network therapist, he made 21 unhelpful calls to Centene, according to ProPublica, but found no care. Tragically, in May 2023, Ravi Coutinho was found dead. His death was ruled an accident. The ProPublica investigation revealed he was trapped by a ghost network, and customer service failed to connect him. While the ghost network didn't directly cause his death, it was a significant obstacle, creating a frustrating situation where listed providers were often unavailable or had outdated information, as detailed by healthjournalism.org, NPR, and OPB.
That's chilling, Chloe. What specific legal arguments is Barbara Weber's attorney making?
Her attorney, Mel C. Orchard III, filed the lawsuit on May 23, 2025, utilizing findings from ProPublica's September 2024 investigation, part of their series, quote, America's Mental Barrier, end quote. Orchard aims to hold Centene accountable for negligence and consumer fraud before a jury. The lawsuit argues the Ambetter directory's errors created a false impression of available care and concealed insufficient services. It contends Centene and HealthNet of Arizona violated state and federal laws requiring accurate provider directories, including those aligned with the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act and the No Surprises Act.
Has Centene faced similar accusations before?
Unfortunately, Grace, this is not Centene's first rodeo. Centene, one of America's 25 largest companies, has faced similar claims. ProPublica reports their lawyers have denied misrepresenting in-network providers in other lawsuits. A Centene subsidiary was fined over $1 million in Illinois in 2022 for mental health-related violations. In 2021, San Diego also sued Centene subsidiaries. Arizona regulators had previously warned HealthNet of Arizona about directory issues. Though HealthNet promised corrections, regulators did not find them and have not confirmed resolution, as ProPublica also reported. This issue seems to be a real sticking point.
Has Centene or HealthNet of Arizona responded to this specific lawsuit?
As of today, June 2, 2025, following the May 23 lawsuit filing and a new ProPublica report, neither Centene nor HealthNet of Arizona has issued official statements or filed a legal response. ProPublica noted their representatives reached out multiple times for comment but received no response, continuing a general lack of media engagement. Radio Free Asia also highlighted the lawsuit. They are playing a very quiet hand, Grace.
It seems so. Chloe, how widespread is this, quote, ghost network, end quote, problem across the insurance industry?
It's a truly systemic problem, Grace. Investigations by the New York Attorney General and the U.S. Senate Finance Committee consistently find a high percentage of mental health providers listed in directories to be, quote, ghosts, end quote. For instance, a New York Attorney General finding indicated a staggering 86% of mental health care providers listed on New York health plans networks were ghosts. A, quote, secret shopper, end quote, survey related to a lawsuit against Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield of New York found only 7 out of 100 contacted psychiatric practices were both in network and accepting new patients, as detailed across Harvard.edu, Crane's New York Business, Fierce Healthcare, Modern Healthcare, and BH Business. This is compounded by a national shortage of professionals and insurers' slow pace in updating directories.
That 86% figure is shocking. What is being done on a regulatory level?
Regulators are increasingly focusing on network adequacy. New federal requirements under the Consolidated Appropriations Act are set to take effect. For example, Medicaid and CHIP programs are mandated to ensure provider directories are updated and accurate by July 1, 2025, which is just 29 days from today. Ravi Coutinho's case, brought to light by ProPublica, stands as a stark and tragic reminder of the human cost when health insurers fail to deliver on their promise of accessible care.
Chloe, that was an incredibly comprehensive and crucial report. Thank you for shedding light on this deeply disturbing issue.
My pleasure, Grace.
Poland has a new president after a close election. Conservative Karol Nawrocki won with 50.89% of the vote against Rafał Trzaskowski in a record turnout election. Nawrocki, a 42-year-old historian and amateur boxer, is a political newcomer backed by the Law and Justice Party. He campaigned on traditional values and a strongman image. His campaign faced serious controversy, including accusations of Holocaust revisionism and questions about his past. He is a Eurosceptic, favoring strong ties with Washington. He opposes European Union climate and migration policies. His opponent, Warsaw's Liberal Mayor Trzaskowski, was pro-European Union and had vowed to push Prime Minister Donald Tusk's reform agenda. Nawrocki's win is a surprise. He trailed in polls for most of the campaign, and an initial exit poll even called it for Trzaskowski. This outcome highlights a deeply divided nation. It is expected to heavily influence Poland's governance. This will likely lead to a more populist path, with Nawrocki using his veto power to tie up Tusk's agenda. European right-wing leaders, including Hungary's Viktor Orban, quickly offered their congratulations on the result of the June 1st runoff. Meanwhile, parts of southwestern China are underwater after flash floods caused significant damage in Yunnan province. Intense rainfall has led to overflowing rivers. Homes and infrastructure, including at least 16 bridges in Newjiang-Lisu Autonomous Prefecture, have been affected. In that prefecture, 27 houses were damaged. In Diqing County in the Diqing Tibetan Autonomous Prefecture, roads collapsed and landslides occurred. Rescue efforts were complicated by deep fog. Hundreds were evacuated or relocated. This included residents, business staff, and 300 tourists from the Mary Snow Mountain Scenic Zone. Thankfully, despite the damaging conditions and it being a national holiday, no deaths, injuries, or missing persons have been reported so far. More rain is forecast as China weathers a storm of increasingly severe weather. Meteorologists attribute this to climate change and potentially link it to the Mayu summer monsoon. Across the border, a smoky situation is unfolding in Canada. Numerous wildfires across Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta have forced over 25,000 residents to evacuate. Manitoba has been hardest hit with around 17,000 people fleeing their homes. This includes the entire community of Flin Flon, and a state of emergency has been declared. With over 170 fires active nationally as of the weekend, many are still out of control. Officials say the next few days are critical. They are hoping for some relief from rain. Firefighting efforts are hampered by dry, windy conditions, steep terrain, and poor visibility due to smoke. This burning issue is not just for Canada. Smoke is drifting south, causing hazy skies and air quality alerts in several United States from the upper Midwest down to Chicago and Washington, D.C. It looks like Canadian smoke will persist for a bit longer. Assistance is now coming from other provinces and United States like Alaska, Oregon, and Arizona. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, new Mayor Monroe Nichols, the city's first black mayor, is proposing a $100 million private trust. He is calling it a road to repair for the descendants of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. This initiative avoids the term reparations. It aims to provide scholarships and housing assistance. The bulk of the funds, around $60 million, is earmarked for improving buildings and revitalizing the historic Greenwood district. This will help it become an economic power once more. This follows earlier efforts like the Beyond Apology Commission. Mayor Nichols described the proposal as a significant first step. He called it a stain on our city's history and hopes it will foster healing. The plan notably does not include direct cash payments to descendants or the 2 remaining centenarian survivors. It aims to secure $105 million in assets by June 2026. The community seems invested in its success. And finally, it was not exactly a good performance for SpaceX Starship. The FAA is requiring a mishap investigation. The vehicle was lost during its 9th test flight on May 27th. The Starship made it halfway around the world to the Indian Ocean before it spun. It experienced what SpaceX termed a rapid, unscheduled disassembly. Elon Musk indicated leaks caused a loss of main tank pressure. Its Super Heavy booster, being reused for the first time, also met a similar fate over the Gulf of Mexico. This happened shortly after its landing burn began. However, the FAA says that particular booster is covered by pre-approved test-induced damage exceptions, so the investigation will focus solely on the Starship vehicle. The good news is that all debris landed safely within designated hazard areas. There was no public injury or damage. The FAA will now oversee the SpaceX-led investigation to determine the cause of the problem. Before Starship can fly again, a FAA signating development that prioritizes public safety. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.